up, 30 down. We are 20 minutes away from the drum and the calendar, and more conversation with you at 866 Pit Lane. Let's go to the hotline right now. Bring in the driver of the number 88 Chevrolets for Trackhouse Racing. Connor Zilisch is back with us. Connor, top of the morning, and welcome back into TMD. How are we doing today?
I'm great. How are you guys this morning?
We are great, Connor. Appreciate the time to talk to you. My very first question is, have you thawed out from Wednesday night?
I was warm inside the car, actually. It made that night enjoyable. I feel bad for everybody not inside of a race car, though, because it sure did get cold quick when I got out. But, yeah, I'm all good.
What was your assessment of it? I know for a lot of us, it was two different races. Obviously, the first half was in the dry. The back half was in the wet and the ice and all that stuff. In the dry conditions, what was your assessment of Bowman Gray Stadium?
I thought it was great. It's really racy, physical, technical, too. I mean, that place was harder than I expected it to be. For a little quarter mile, there's a lot of technique involved and a lot of different ways to get around that place. So I enjoyed figuring it out. It took me a little bit of time, but we made the show. Had a solid run, got up to 12th before it got wet. And we restarted 12th for the second half of the race when things basically took a whole 180 and turned into a chaotic mess. But, yeah, it was fun. There were times it wasn't fun, but, looking back on it, it was a good time. I learned a lot. I got to check a lot of boxes, that's for sure, and definitely made some progress.
Is some of that takeaway, Connor, that you were able to learn, as you mentioned, the extra horsepower, tire degradation? What were some of the takeaways that you had on that side?
I think just running laps and learning racecraft and just, trying to figure out what it's like to race against, a lot of those guys. It's definitely a step up from what I've done, just in the fact that, there's not much. It's a lot harder to outsmart the guys I'm racing against on Sundays than it was on Saturdays. And, I knew that coming in, but, those guys are all really, really good at putting their car in the right spot and making it hard to pass them. So it definitely, was good to get some experience around those guys and get, 200 extra laps under my belt.
So what was the difference that you noticed? Obviously, you tore up the Xfinity Series last year. You won a lot of races. You spent a lot of time up front. But obviously, in the small sample size that you have, how is the racing different on the Cup level than it was the Xfinity or now the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series level?
Yeah, it's just everybody is really, really good. In Xfinity, there was 8 to 10 guys each week that were really competitive and could win. And I think this past, on Wednesday, I think every single driver spent time inside the top 5, top 10. And I think that's just kind of a testament to how competitive the Cup Series has become. And at the end of the day, you have to be perfect to win. And I think that's the biggest difference that I've, come to figure out so far is just how good everybody really is on Sundays.
Well, you obviously have done other kinds of racing. So back to the conditions, have you ever raced in anything like that? What's been like the worst conditions you've ever been behind the wheel of a race car in?
That wasn't even close to the worst.
No?
I've had some crazy conditions behind the wheel, but I thought they were going to let us race sooner. Honestly, I heard a lot of drivers were complaining about the conditions, but I feel like NASCAR gave us rain tires for a reason. We might as well race when it starts to rain a little bit. And the sooner you can get us back on the track, the quicker we can put some heat in it to help the drying process. But, I think we did a great job getting the show in. Obviously, weather wasn't cooperating the past week, and NASCAR had to make changes to get us on track and get us going, and I'm glad they did that and made it all work. But, I've driven in some heavy snow before. Cold rain and what that was certainly not fun, but I've been in some crazy conditions before.
And the Clash is behind us. And now we look forward to going to Daytona next week for the stock car portion of Speed Weeks 2026. You mentioned that, you checked a couple of boxes the other night. This is the first time for a race that you and your new team have gotten together, Randall Burnett, your crew chief, and all the guys. What was that like, just getting everybody together? Was it almost like the first day of school?
It was. Yeah, it was good to kind of just get a feel for what the year was going to be like. And, we've worked really hard, but, it's hard to know what it's going to actually be like until you show up and get on the track and, actually get to listen to your crew chief and spotter on the radio and start figuring out communication and all the things that you have to do to really find success. And it all started on Wednesday with the first race of the year. So, yeah, it was good to get acclimated to those guys and get to finally work with my team in a race scenario. And we can start building on what we learned Wednesday. And that's certainly going to help just moving forward. The more laps and the more times that I get to tell the team, what my car is doing wrong, and the more they can understand what my feedback means, the better. So I'm excited for it. I feel like we've got a really good group, and we showed that this past week with some time up at the front and, being competitive, and hopefully we can continue that coming into Daytona.
So Mike and I have interviewed Randall before, so we kind of know him a little bit. We've interviewed now you. You're going to be a regular on our show. But for that connectivity to work, with you guys in communication, your personalities, what has to happen for that to be a success in your mind, Connor?
Yeah, I think you just got to be in sync. That's the biggest thing is when I say something, when I give an example of, how loose my car is, Randall has to know that, when my car is 3 numbers loose, I need X adjustment to help make it better. And you got to get that in tune as quick as possible because, those adjustments in the middle of the race can make or break how you run that day. And, having that relationship in tune is really important to, having a successful season on track.
I'm curious to know, some drivers like their cars on the snug side, some like them on the loose side. Where are you in that spectrum? How tight or how loose do you like your race car?
I definitely like, my race car on the freer side. I think it's a lot easier to manage a free race car than it is to manage a tight race car. There's things you can do to tighten up the race car, but it's a lot harder to make the race car loose when you're tight when the thing. So, I think, the best drivers can drive anything and make anything work. And, I've known that for a while, but if I had to choose one or the other, I'd probably take a looser car.
Not every driver embraces super speedway racing, which we do now, obviously, at Daytona, Talladega, and to a degree Atlanta. What about you in super speedway racing?
Yeah, super speedway racing hasn't exactly been the nicest to me. I haven't had the greatest record at those tracks, but I enjoy the craft of super speedway racing. It's tougher than people realize, and it certainly is, a skill that, you can say it's luck and that you continue to get unlucky, but at some point it becomes, the driver doing their job and, putting themselves in the right spots to win races and stay out of trouble. And that's something I haven't quite figured out yet, it seems, by my track record. But, I'm doing everything I can to, continue to learn and try and find myself in the right spot at the end of one of those races.
I would venture to say that 99.9% of everyone listening right now will never be able to turn a lap at Daytona or Talladega. So this question is for them and us. When you're on the racetrack and you're trying to find which lane to go with and where to be, what does it feel like when you pick up the draft and when you finally latch a hold of it? And then how do you go about doing your business when you get in the draft and you have that aerodynamic toe that you need to be successful there?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. You can listen to the engine and watch the RPMs on the tack and just, you'll be going at a certain speed without the draft. And when you pick it up, it's like the engine just picks up to a whole different pitch. And it's, it's hard to tell visually the difference between a couple mile an hour, but you can hear it in the engine when you do pick up that draft, and it's pretty cool. And then when you're in the pack, one of the things that I don't think people realize watching super speedway racing is just how bad the visibility is. All you're looking at is basically the bumper of the car in front of you. And, I don't know if you've ever maybe tailgated someone on the highway, but when you really get up close to somebody and get up behind them, all you're looking at is their rear bumper, and you can't see what's going on in front of that. And that's what makes super speedway racing so difficult, and that's what makes the spotters so valuable, is they're able to kind of paint that picture around you and give you an idea of what's going on, 5 cars in front of you and 5 cars behind you, because, you can't really see what's going on around you.
You've got teammates with the organization. You've got teammates with the manufacturer. Have there been conversations yet about working together, or is that going to happen when you get down to Daytona, Connor?
Yeah, I think those conversations really start when you get down there and you have meetings with all the drivers. But obviously, my team, me, Ross, and SVG, we all work great together. And, we've already talked about just the season kind of setting a precedent of how we expect to handle each other on the racetrack and the respect we plan to show each other. And, I've got 2 great teammates with those guys, and I certainly, respect them, and I'm able to learn from them and ask them questions, and vice versa. If I can do anything to help them on the track or off the track, I always try and do my best to do that.
This is the final off weekend before the 36 race journey begins with the Daytona 500 next weekend. What is on the to-do list, or what would you like to do in this final off weekend of the off season?
Yeah, I'm going to lay back on the couch, watch the Super Bowl, and just get some rest. The schedule is certainly one of a kind, and it's straining. So every day off that you can get, you got to take and enjoy it. And I'm going to watch some sports and try not to think too much about racing. And when Monday comes around next week and we head down to Daytona on Tuesday, I'll get back into race mode.
Do you have a rooting interest, Seahawks or Patriots, Connor?
Man, I'd love to see Drake May win a Super Bowl. I think as a native Charlotte boy, Drake's an impressive guy. I'd love to see the Patriots pull it out.
Patriots and Seahawks, Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara, California, coming up this weekend. Enjoy this last bit of downtime and this last bit of rest that you can get. We'll look forward to seeing you and the rest of the 88 bunch in Daytona next week.
Thank you. Have a great morning. See you guys.
See you, Connor. Thank you.
It's Connor Zilisch coming off the Clash. Listen, I am not mad at that young man at all. Final off weekend, I'm laying on the sofa or the couch, whatever you decide to use, all weekend long, watch the Super Bowl, and just chill. And I think that's what a lot of us are going to be doing before we start heading to the World Center of Racing next week.
I mean, 100%. I mean, this is a weekend where we don't have much on the agenda, which is fine, except the Super Bowl. And I would imagine these drivers, we say it all the time, the longest season in professional sports, not going to get an off weekend until Easter weekend on the Cup side. So I have no doubt you're going to see a lot of relaxation, a lot of family time too, for those that do have families, for sure.
Now, one thing I will give him credit for, and this is, I've only got a small sample size of this to work with, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he handles this year. So a report from Jenna Fryer said this is the most looked forward to rookie in the Cup Series since Jeff Gordon, right?
Yeah, I saw Jenna write that, yeah.
Dale Jr. hopped in and agreed with that assessment. So already, I don't want to say preseason pressure is mounting, but the conversations have begun. I learned this through when I visited with him a couple of weeks ago in Charlotte for production days, that he can compartmentalize and push to the side. I asked him about, have you gotten over last year? Oh, yep. Took me a couple of days, couple of weeks. We're done. That's over. We move on, right? I wonder how being a full-time Cup Series racer, Rookie of the Year contender, and if no one else hops in, the Rookie of the Year in the Cup Series,
right? How
this will test those abilities or test the ability to put that behind him and put things behind him and focus in on the task at hand.
Well, I think I asked him either last week or the week before. Again, he's a regular with us now here on TMD, about how he manages, to your point, expectations, anticipation. And he said he doesn't really set goals for himself. He does his best to compartmentalize, to your point, and not listen to a lot of that noise. You know my line about comparison being the thief of joy. I don't know, man. That to me, and I get it, it's sports and we do it all the time. I don't think I agree with what Jenna said and what Dale Jr. said. I don't feel like he's got that much. There's no doubt he's talented, he's personable, all of that. But Jeff Gordon, to me, was a different animal back then. Jeff came in with a little bit more of a resume, a little bit more of a sample size, a little bit more notoriety because we had been doing on Thursday Night Thunder and all of that. So I don't know if I would make that comparison between the two, but there's no doubt. I mean, could we be talking one day about him being as good as a Jeff Gordon? Well, again, that's a lofty comparison, Mike. He's got a lot of talent. I think he's got everything going for him. But in my world, let's kind of let him be himself going into this year and kind of see where he goes before I make those comparisons to a Hall of Famer like JG.
Well, why don't we have that discussion a little more in depth at the top of the hour, when we'll also get back to your Clash takeaways, what you're able to glean from Wednesday night's extravaganza, after we bang the drum and check the calendar next.